With 2 days to go until polling day for the independence referendum in Scotland, the tone of the campaign is very different from where it was just 2 weeks ago. After the pro-independence Yes campaign pulled ahead in a number of opinion polls, the parties at Westminster vowed to grant Scotland greater autonomy if it voted no. But will these promises have any effect on the result? And what has been the effect of the campaign in Scottish society, and in particular the Muslim community, in terms of re-engaging people in the society? Nathaniel Amos-Sansam has been following this story.
To go until the polls open in one of the most important votes in modern British history. Campaigning in the Scottish referendum is reaching its crescendo. A unity rally was held in London yesterday, in a show of support for Scotland remaining in the UK. Interest in the vote has been notably muted in the rest of the UK. However, the rally's organisers press the importance of the union.
England and Scotland invented the modern world when they worked together. The world today has been shaped by this cooperation between these two people. The Industrial Revolution, Financial Revolution, representative democracy, the Enlightenment. These are things that have come out of the union of these two people.
The tone of the campaign has changed recently, in part down to an increasing number of polls showing the Yes campaign pulling ahead of Better Together. Both sides agree, however, that everything is still to play for, and that the result could be decided by the increasingly small group of voters yet to make up their mind. As the polls have narrowed, debates over Scottish business and the economy, with many businesses torn on whether a yes vote would be good or bad for Scotland. Scotland's First Minister has been bullish on the topic, saying that a yes vote would be beneficial to Scottish business.
Well, I think obviously they look at these business people speaking in a personal capacity, and I think that's very important because anybody in business should have one voice and one vote, just like the rest of us. But the impressive array of the almost 3,000 people who've now joined Business for Scotland, businesses large and small across the country, is a very strong point in the Yes campaign.
But following announcements from all three main parties at Westminster last week, Scotland looks set to gain greater control over the state of its economy, with the promise of further devolution of business rates and tax-raising powers. Speaking in Aberdeen yesterday, the Prime Minister said that independence, if it happened, would be permanent.
There's no going back to the way things were. A vote for no means real change. And we've spelt out that change in practical terms with a plan and a process. If we get a no vote on Thursday, that will trigger a major, unprecedented programme of devolution with additional powers for the Scottish Parliament. Major new powers over tax, spending, some welfare services. We've agreed a timetable for that stronger Scottish Parliament, a timetable to bring in the new powers that will go ahead if there is a no vote.
Yet despite the increasingly divisive nature of the campaign, the referendum has been successful in re-engaging people in politics, with an estimated 97% of the Scottish electorate registered to vote. With an estimated 97% of the Scottish electorate registered to vote, one of the highest on record. The campaign has also gained the interest of similar separatist movements across the world, with members of Quebec's Parti Québécois, which has held 2 failed referendums on independence from Canada, flying over to observe and help in the campaign. And in Catalonia last week, thousands of protesters lined the streets of Barcelona to demand the right to hold a similar referendum on independence from Spain. Whichever way the result goes this Thursday, the debates and challenges that the referendum has raised will continue, and the status quo of British politics and sovereignty has been forever changed. Nathaniel Amos-Sansam, The Report, Islam Channel.
To discuss this, I'm joined in the studio by Mohammed Amin, who is the chairman of the Conservative Muslim Forum, and Moeen Yaseen, managing director at Global Vision 2000. Welcome to both of you. And is this debate we're seeing in Scotland, as Daniel says, is so dynamic, is it about nationalism or is it about social justice?
Both. But I think the key question is sovereignty. And I don't buy what I heard by one of the comments by someone in Trafalgar Square, how wonderful the union has been. I would say it was based on ethnic cleansing, bribery of the Scottish elite, and the co-opting of Scotland in the British Empire.
A parcel of rogues, Robert Burns says, when they signed the union. Has it been forced into this union?
Not in the slightest. And Scots have played an enormously important role as governors, colonial administrators. Scotland and England basically ran the empire together.
But was that a good thing or a bad thing?
It wasn't good for the Indians who were being colonised, but from the point of view of Britain, the empire was a great success.
Now, we've seen here the various Westminster politicians suddenly rolling out this package of devolution maximum, devolmax as they call it. The very final days of the campaign, when the Yes campaign went ahead, are they Fritz, to use the phrase of Margaret Thatcher?
Yes, definitely. Fright has taken root of the complacent, dare I say arrogant, Westminster unionist establishment. I believe it's too little, too late.
I mean, they did reject, Cameron rejected putting the Devo Max option on the referendum paper as Alex-Salmond wanted. I mean, it's a bit strange something to roll this out in the final days of the campaign.
Having post-mortems over a referendum that hasn't happened yet, I think is pretty pointless. And what we have is a referendum which will give us a clear yes-no answer. And I hope that the answer will be no. I'm reasonably confident there will be no, but looking at the polls, one can no way be certain.
I mean, it's interesting because Westminster politicians don't seem to have quite got this right. They don't seem to have addressed what the issue is, which are bringing more Scots to vote yes and making this result a knife edge. Do you agree?
Yes, I agree. As I said, they basically were complacent. And I think when I'm looking at the history, I used to be in Scotland at the time, it was almost 2 decades now. I'm looking at Canon Kenyon Wright, one of the architects, and it's partly the complacency of the establishment. They didn't give the third option of devolution max.
And there is much talk that if David Cameron loses this referendum, the knives are going to be out from the Tory backbenches.
I don't want to anticipate anything about what might happen if the referendum goes the wrong way. We don't have the result yet.
Okay, polls in the Muslim community in Scotland show a significant majority for a yes vote. How do you explain that?
Well, the Muslims they're a minority, obviously. They're part of a society, and they pick up the trends, the feelings, the emotions of the people. And it's quite clear that there is a mood or a change in mood of the Scottish people towards sovereignty.
And do you think there's any specific reasons why the Muslim vote may be swayed towards independence in Scotland?
It's possible that the policies of the Scottish government on issues that are of great concern to Muslims, for example, the Middle East, may be different from the policies of the United Kingdom government, and that might be a factor.
You mean Alex-Salmond actually supported the people of Gaza when it came to the war?
Well, nobody is against the people of Gaza. It's a question of what you say and how you say it.
Okay. And this result is a knife edge. I mean, what's your prediction? And Mohammed's very careful not to predict, but have you got a prediction for this Thursday?
It is a crossroads. It's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, and it's in the hands of the Scottish people. I believe definitely it's going to be close. I think the momentum as an independent, analyst and organisation, I think it is towards a yes vote.
And you were in Trafalgar Square last night.
That's right. First time in my life I've ever been to a rally, because I think this is so important that it was worth breaking the habit of a lifetime.
And the mood there was?
The mood there was very clear that we don't want Scotland to go. It's not just a question of economics, it's not just a question of business or money. Scotland and Britain have had a great history together. I don't want Adam Smith to retrospectively become a foreigner.
Aren't the Scots better together?
Perhaps you could argue that, but no, I think it has been a colonised nation. It has been exploited, and the Scottish elite were co-opted by the British establishment.
And we're seeing people, it's reported, from Catalonia and Quebec coming to observe and take part in this referendum. It's having a bit of an impact around the world, isn't it?
Oh, quite definitely. I mean, if the Scots vote yes, it will have major implications for Spain. I don't think personally it will make much difference in Canada. I think the desire for Quebec independence has sort of faded away. But certainly in Spain it would be very significant.
And the Spanish government has taken a very clear position that it doesn't want Scotland voting yes.
Absolutely. I don't want Scotland voting yes either.
No, but the Spanish government has its own particular take on this.
That's right.
Yeah. I mean, internationally it has had an impact, hasn't it? I mean, the President Obama is now calling for, hoping, very carefully worded, but hoping for a no vote in this referendum. What are the Americans' interests?
Well, military, for instance. Also, the UK is a stepping stone for their control of Europe, and a breakup of the United Kingdom isn't in their interests. Having said that, I think we're living in an age where the nation state is withering, given blocs emerging, like EU, for instance. So there are other deeper issues here. And and also, nations want their sovereignty.
I mean, that's a point that's been made by others, that an independent Scotland will remain in the European Union. It won't be a sovereign nation anyway.
An independent Scotland will not be in the European Union. It will need to apply for membership of the European Union. Any one of the existing members of the European Union can veto it. Spain, as we've just been talking about, with its own problems in Catalonia, if I was the Spanish government, I would tell the Scots, no way.
Can you take away citizenship of the European Union, which the Scots have enjoyed for more than 3 decades? I mean, is there provision for this?
Currently, Scotland is part of the EU, as the Nationalists have argued, and I think that needs to be seen how that is played out and negotiated. However, I want to make one point clear. I think a yes vote, from my side anyway, doesn't necessarily mean that I agree with all the policies of Alex Salmond. Yeah. For instance, an English Queen as head of state, and so on.
Mohammed, you're proud of wearing your Union Jack today. I mean, yes. Are you going to be taking part in this campaign, urging people, friends, relatives in Scotland to vote no?
I've been very active on Twitter already.
OK. And what will you be doing these final hours in the run-up to the referendum?
Yeah, I have spoken to people north of the border and advocated, for them to do the right thing, which is yes.
And we'll see what the result's going to be. It's going down to the wire, isn't it? 97% of adults registered to vote. That's an amazing figure.
Well, I'd be surprised if Alex Salmond's party, who've had several decades, hadn't really whipped up the emotions, which they have, and hearts. So they've had a long time.
97%? You'd welcome that in Westminster elections, wouldn't we?
Well, this is the registration number rather than the turnout figure, but I believe that the turnout will be very high because it's a really important issue.
It is a really important issue.
Yep.
It's one which we've seen all the leaders of the Westminster parties coming together to urge a vote no. But as we say, the result remains on a knife edge. We'll have to wait and see for this Thursday.
Yeah.
Well, that's all we have time for in tonight's programme. Thanks to my guests, and thank you to you for tuning in. Remember, you can join in our Twitter conversation and all of tonight's stories by tweeting #IslamChannel. And using the hashtag The Report. We'll be back tomorrow night. But for now, we'll leave you with footage of the crews battling major wildfires across California that have forced thousands of people to flee, damage or destroy more than 100 buildings and charred thousands of acres of drought-stricken forest. Good night.